Authority. People who are perceived as having an air of authority are simply more persuasive. You can't get around it. People with authority are more persuasive. I'm going to give you a few examples. I'll probably skip one in the name of time. Jaywalking. This is just a neat example. They've done experiments. You know when there's do not walk, and it takes that one person to lead the jaywalk and everybody follows? Well, they've done an experiment. They put a guy in just casual clothing, and he was the leader of the walk. And they calculated how many people would follow this guy crossing the street. Then they put him in a business suit, and they did the same thing. 3.5 times more people follow the guy across the street in the business suit. Does that make sense? Not really. But remember, we are emotional, subconscious decision makers. Another example. They have a speaker come in to an audience. They introduce a speaker as an associate. He does a speech. At the end, they fill out feedback forms, and they ask, how tall is this speaker? Then they bring the speaker into another group. They do the same thing, but they promote him as a PhD. Oddly enough, believe it or not, the height differential is 2.5 inches from a PhD to an associate. That's just the way people perceive your importance. So, how tall do I look right now? I'm really 4 feet. Thank you.
You're an MBA.
I'm MBA, so I'm not quite PhD yet. So how do you project authority? What are some of the things that project authority? Pacing of movement and speech. All the research shows. Now, don't forget, this isn't necessarily always true. It's perception. People who speak at a moderate clip are perceived as having more authority. People who move at a moderate clip are perceived as having more authority. The people who have the least authority are people who speak blah, 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 very fast and move, shuffle, quickly, are in a rush. If somebody has authority, they tend not to rush. So if you're in a position and you want to look like you have authority, move a little bit more slowly, speak a little bit more clearly, and you'll present in an authoritative fashion. This, pause. The pause always shows confidence. Nobody who is nervous will ever pause. They just don't. Practice pausing instead of ums and ahs. You need to practice it. Because when you're nervous, you cannot stop it. But if you want to appear like you have authority, that you're the expert, you must use the pause. Appearance. This goes without saying. When you dress in business attire, you always get treated better because you have an air of authority. That doesn't mean you always have to dress in business attire, but when you do, you are treated better because all the studies show this. You're treated with more dignity and more respect, and you get what you want. Darker clothes have more authority. If you're wearing a suit and you really want to project authority, this is more of a comfortable look, a little more casual. High contrast. High contrast would show more authority.
Hey Frank?
Yes?
How do you think that relates to geography? I'm from California, and people don't wear suits nearly as often as they do.
That's a great question.
And sometimes you look like a fish out of water if you're there in your corporate suit, and the CEO is there in his resort, his thongs and his t-shirt.
It's a whole different show. Absolutely. I mean, you don't want to be a fish out of water. But what I would say is always dressing just a slight step above will give you an air of authority.
Okay, so sort of pay attention to where you're going, and then just
Definitely.
be one
It needs
notch
to,
above
one
that.
notch above. A
Okay.
slight notch above is always the best. Never a notch below. Great question. And body language. Now, some of you have seen my presentation on presentations, so I'm going to go through this, move through this quickly. These are, when people are standing in front of a group or standing with their bosses, they tend not to know what to do with themselves. What do I do with my arms, my hands? Have you ever felt like that? You'll never feel like that again. Here are all the positions from a standing position and what they mean. Behind the back, what do you think? Positive or negative? What do you think? Positive. You are completely exposing in front of your body. You're showing confidence. How about in front? Positive
Impotence.
statements. Impotence. Well, that wasn't the word I was thinking about. This is very protective. This is shrinking violet. Little old me, this is not powerful. Get your hands away from the front of your body. Folded arms, this is obvious. Is this good? Never. Hands in pockets. What do you think?
It's okay.
Typically, both hands in pockets is I'm reserved, I'm a little scared, I'm not comfortable. One hand in pocket is fine. One hand in the pocket is fine if it's not formal. Crossing legs standing. This is very interesting. They've done studies where subordinates and their superiors are mixing in social occasions, and this is odd. The superiors almost always are standing with their legs like this, and the subordinates are almost always crossing their legs. This and this. When you shrink your space, you are not showing confidence. When you use your space, you are. It's that simple. Don't cross your legs when standing. And don't read too much into this. Somebody might be crossing their legs because they're comfortable. Somebody might be like this because they're cold. It's not a science, but it's a generality. Hands curled to the sides. When you're nervous and you're not confident, you don't have authority, and your hands will always be the tell. They will almost always curl up like this. Look at people's hands. Sometimes even they'll put them in fists. Watch your hands and relax them. Shake them out. Make them like rubbery. They should feel rubbery. That's nice and rubbery. And now that looks comfortable, doesn't it? And hands to the side, hands down, is always appropriate and comfortable as long as your elbows are bent. When people are nervous, they straighten out their elbows and they do this when they're on stage getting an award. See my hands? See my elbows? Does that look comfy? Looks like, right? You just got to relax, bend those elbows.